All right, hey, thanks for tuning in to Wednesday's live stream, working on phpstan-drupal again. I want to pick up where I left off last week, where I was digging into some items turned up from Drupal core's adoption of phpstan-drupal. So if you missed that, Drupal core is now running phpstan level 0 against its code base, and there's a few things that turned up. Obviously, if it's a really big code base being run against static analysis, there's going to be quirks. One of the things that turned up is that the return type from the entity query dynamic extension was always returning integer as the key with string type as the value. Now, mind you, the query when it comes back is going to have the identifier as the key and then also the identifier as the value. But when loading content entities which have numeric IDs, it actually gets turned into an integer for the key, but still a string wrapped numeric value for the value, or for the ID value in the associated array. But for config, IDs are strings, period. So it was returning the wrong type, and I forgot to link to the appropriate Drupal.org issue. So let me see if I can quick pull that up. Drupal core. Let me just quick see if I can find that in my issues. Because it got marked postponed. Cannot fix. Here we go. Because it was returning the wrong value. So if we look at this merge request, just to give some backstory, because also the recording was trash from last week. So if you're catching this on YouTube, you have no idea what I'm talking about, because I wasn't able to upload it due to internet issues. So it comes back to about right here, where it had to say that the array was string or int mixed when actually it's a string. So I opened an issue out of that because somewhere down the line it runs unset, and phpstan was like, you can't unset here with a string. So we're gonna fix that up. But I hit some weird snags, and I left myself a review. We were having some really weird return type issues with caching, and what I think I need to do is create a specific query type class instead of having the query type hold the storage type. So if we were to look into here, so entity query count type. So this checks if it's an entity query count. So I should move this over. So there's entity query type, and this was wrapping the entity storage. And the bug I was having is this type was being passed, but it's being cached with the incorrect storage. So what I need to do is actually move this over to entity query. Or let's undo that. I'm going to undo that actually. And go to entity query. Let's just, what was I going to name it? Because there's no reason to have it extend anything besides object type. Same like we're doing here. So let's go take the proposed names. So we want an entity query, new file, config entity query type.php. Let's add it. And let's just go ahead. Just do some copy paste and renames for config entities. Config entity query. So we got config entity query type, and we want content entity query type. Again, probably don't even need these class documents, but we will keep them. All right, so let's find usages of this entity query type. And we're going to place it with the explicit classes. Get type from static call. So yeah, so we're doing this wrong if it's incorrect. So what we should do is if entity type do we get storage type let's see, entity storage type. So yeah, that's what we can do. So let's do entity storage type equals entity type get storage type. We'll refactor this to say entity storage type. So if entity storage type is null, we return the type because we weren't able to understand what the entity storage is. And basically this happens if we don't know what kind of class the entity is. Otherwise we'll get some kind of type. Let's say if entity storage type instance of content entity storage type return new entity or content entity query type where it's these values here without the storage type. If entity storage type is instance of config entity storage type, we're going to return the config entity query type. Return config entity query type and default to return type, right? Yeah. So if it's not one of these two, we fall back, which, oh yeah, that default would be if it's the default storage type, because we have no idea. All right. So we got that. Now, if I were to run the test, something's going to get broken. So let's go back to the find entity storage. This right here. You can hopefully remove let's see. I want to undo a bunch of my changes and try to get back to default. So that's the test. Hit query. Let's remove this get query. Or no. Wait. Where do we? Oh, that's right. There's two ways that we can get the query. We can get it from the entity storage or from the Drupal static. So actually this logic has to be replicated here. So that's it. Default return type, caller type. So for get query, we'll return the default. But if caller type, so caller type is one of the storages. So if caller type is instance of content entity storage type, return new content entity query type with I guess we need the default after all. So let's just say return type equals this. So we'll copy this over. We should actually never get here, but we'll just default to it. Return type. Return type. Get the return type. Get the class name subtracted type. So if return type instance of It's not an object type, return. We'll just do the default there. And this should be config entity storage type. And then config entity query type. Oh, it's so confusing, but I think that will do it, because whenever we get the query, it's like this looks for entity query from Drupal static. This gets it from the storage. Now what we need to do is, if the entity type has a specific storage type, we return that specific query type. So let me find these usages: entity query type, import statement, entity query. All right, where do we still use this here? Okay, so this is where things are. So if var type is instance of, so let's change it. So we're gonna pluck this out. So this is the execute. And if var type is instance of config entity query type, var type instance of content entity query type, we return those appropriate types. No longer have these use statements. An instance of is removed. Let's look here. This is no longer used. Let's run the test again and see. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to do some debugging. A lot of debugging. And look at that. We have full test passes. So let's just run all the tests really quick. So the problem that happened is I reused the same type class that had a different value inside of it, and phpstan caches that if it's the same type, and some of the internals are the same, such as the class is always query interface, but by using different type objects, in this case of content entity query type or config entity query type, it breaks the cache for that object, and is also why things just felt haywire when I was going through it the first time. But now it seems to be working. So let's commit this, get status. Let's look at, I just want to look at the diff. Yeah, so those are just blank object types. Remove these use statements, clean this up, which that looks a lot better too now. Entity storage. So yeah, so based off the caller, so the entity storage, we return that, and then for the static, we check if it's entity query, and boom. Use specific type classes for entity query type. And there's no need to have a generic generic query type, because Drupal just doesn't have one, or we're fine falling back to query interface. There's no need to have a specific one in that use case, so we'll fall back. So again here, which probably didn't need to change this. I could remove this type, this type return change, because it's not relevant anymore, but it fixes it because it really should be returning that it's an entity storage type, not just object type, because it's either null or one of these. The Drupal static, this just returns true, because now we handle everything in default to the return type. Although, wait, what about this? Let's try fallback for all other methods on query interface to ensure the default return type of this is the correct type from the parent caller. The default return type is cache. Let's see if I can remove this hack. So this is the dynamic entity return type extension. Wait. Entity query. So let's just comment that out and go to the test source type. What is this? Entity query dynamic entity. No. Entity query. Entity dynamic. And here's our test case here. So as you see, Drupal entity query versus entity type manager get storage get query. That's the two cases we're dealing with here. Let's run this and see if I can remove this by commenting out the var type. The default return type should work. And it does. So let's remove this. Now the interesting question would be, this used to only handle count and execute. Let's go back to that. Count, execute. And let's just see. All right, it's all passing. So now I was able to undo a bunch of the hacks I did before. Diff, git commit AV, undo hacks. Yeah. Let's keep entity query return type restricted to count and execute. Let's do git push. Let's refresh it, and I'm going to check something real quick. You got to reply to something real quick. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so test pass. Let's get back to reviewing this because, like I said, I kind of went down the rabbit hole and made a mess last week, and I want to make sure only the appropriate changes go through. All right, so extension looks good. This is creep, but that's fine. This is brand new, and it listens for the Drupal static class and for entity query, so that way we return the appropriate types. Now there is some duplication here between this class and the get storage, which some people would be like, oh, dry, you do not repeat yourself. You did it twice. I don't care. I believe dry kicks in when you do something about 4 times, maybe 3. Like you're doing it the 3rd time, you're like, oh, I shouldn't copy this. And it depends on the business value. In here, I don't think this is going to change often enough to abstract this to say, I guess we could make a class that says, you know, get appropriate query type from entity storage, but I'm not going to make a class for this just for the 2 instances because I feel like that's just as much of a maintenance burden as having to fix it in 2 spots when the tests fail. So I am not a diehard person on the dry concept. These are just empty value objects. If instance of object type to do, if this is config storage, so there, we just fixed that to do in this pull request. That's always a to do was squashed. That's always a good thing to celebrate when you actually fix it to do in your code. Let's mark this as viewed. The entity query type, this needs to get deleted because it's no longer used. Find usages again, just to make sure. Usages of entity. Why is it? Find usages of entity query type. All right, so that's dead code. So let's make sure. Let's delete it. And I'll run all the tests again locally. So let's leave that. Return type for get query. Yep, we're handling get query now. So again, this is where we could handle it and share the code. Yeah, we'll just keep it separate for now. And then here's the test. The test showed that you can add condition. Oh yeah, that was one thing too that was breaking. Is once we called another method on the query interface, things got weird last week when I was working on this. So now we're proving that we can do count condition and get back that it's an integer because it's a query count. And here's all the tests for blocks. All right, so let's do get status and just copy this name, get commit AV. Let's do M, delete old, push, refresh. All right, I'm happy with this for when it passes. Excuse me. All right, I feel much more confident about this now. So let's go ahead and review, resolve, resolve that. So this used specific. I added specific types to represent config or content query types. Is fixed caching in phpstan and feeling way more confident. Going to merge this after test pass. You know, the funny part is that I don't exactly have a lot of contributors to this library. It's mostly myself. I did ask Brombod for some input because they did an amazing job contributing code in this area before. So it might seem like overkill, like why am I messaging myself basically? So that when I come back to this maybe in like 3 months and I'm wondering what happened, like why did I add these? What decisions were made? There's a record for myself. So even if you are like the main developer on a project, it's good to leave notes for yourself because we forget things change, and it's nice to be able to go back and reference the why you did something. So it's always a good habit, just like it's a good habit to, even if this your private project and you're the only developer, to put it in a private repo so that way you have it and you have the history. It's just always good to have notes and a trail. All right, I'm gonna do a squash merge for this one. And we can close that issue. Branch, check out main. And let's go look at some other issues. One day I'll get through and close those out. The reason I'm not actually right now is this requires a lot of work. This I'm not close fixing because I can kind of see why that needs to be done. And this failure shows that we crashed phpstan. Actually, this could be rebased. So why don't I do that? Because phpstan had an update. So git check out, git rebase main, git push f. So this crashed on PHP 8. Oh, interesting. It was just PHP 8. Oh yeah, because in PHP 7.2 is a warning. PHP 8, it caused a fatal crash. So I'll do a push and we'll verify that it no longer crashes Drupal. Let's see. This would be a good one to fix. So there's this browser test default rule. So in Drupal whatever, they added a requirement to set the default theme. See, this is a change record message. Oh, we should actually change that to be a tip, but I'm not going to break the Drupal baseline. So yeah, testing profiles setting of a default theme is now deprecated. So like you need to specify the theme in your test because they're going to get rid of classy, I believe, in Drupal 10 or 11 is the idea, and just use starter kits. So you generate a theme instead of having to use like a base theme. I think, don't quote me on it, I don't quite remember, but we have some exceptions here. So if it's not from browser test base, if it's from update path test base, ignore it because this actually imports existing site data, but so does installer existing config test base. This installs existing config, which has a theme already installed. So this config tarball. So if we were to look at any of these base tests, oh, don't open it. No. This is going to end up having theme data in it because the tests are passing. So we're just going to add installer config test base. What was this namespace? Drupal functional tests. Oh, installer. That's it. So let's go look at the test for this because I wonder if I can do it better, if I can simplify this check. So rules, default, browser test base. So here's one that proves it shouldn't have an error. Big base, let's go. So it's Drupal test, functional test, installer. Installer. All right, it's here. But first, we also always need to do negative testing. So let's run this test. We should get a test failure from this because we're analyzing something that was causing issues beforehand. So, oh yeah, gotta rerun it. So this latest test fixture should cause a failure. Data set, whatever it is. Is it 5? Maybe. Well, that's not expected. So this should say it's required, but this did not. Profile, config tarball. There's no theme set. Profile testing is installed. Well, that's not what you would expect to have happened. That's going to make this really hard to test, too. Because if we look at... Oh, man. Browser test base default theme rule. Did the baseline get added? I think the baseline... Yeah, so let me also update it that it's not running on Drupal 9. Drupal 10 is the branch that is running against phpstan. So let's go to this baseline. Collapse the sidebar. And I swear that one of these tests here we go. Quick edit JavaScript base. Well, I guess that's one. It's not abstract. So that's a bug. Let's actually copy reference. Drupal.org, project Drupal. So yeah, that's a bug right there. That should be an abstract class. Go to site, come on. Well, I'm just glad my internet isn't bombing out today. Let's see, status, open issues. Last week, the latency just went down the tube. All right, let's create an issue. So this must be declared abstract. And the thing is, like, quick edit is getting ripped out of Drupal core. So we'll see. It's not yet though. Base is a test base class, but not declared abstract. It's causing the following error with phpstan. Copy this out. Let's label it phpstan-0. So that's the tag 2. Everything about level 0 and getting rid of these baseline errors is being tagged phpstan-0. Look at see, it's not abstract. Define as abstract. So let's save this. So let's look at what else is causing this default theme. So update test uploader update uploader test base. Let's see what's going on there. Let's create an issue fork. I'm about to multitask a little too hard. I bet this is the same problem. Default theme. All right, so these are the 2 tests that are failing. So let's go there. I created a issue fork here because we can fix this in the web IDE. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of bouncing around between looking at this baseline and trying to get a patch up for this test. All right, installer existing config no system site. Why is this failing? So this is existing. So let's go back, and we know this is failing. It's a default test. So the multilingual wasn't failing, but this one is. Installer existing config base, installer test base. Let's run the test. Actually, let's run it for both of these, because both of these are failing, and I'm not sure why they would be. And did we get, yes, we did. Let's open the web IDE while this test runs. And that was the quick edit JavaScript test base. So modules, nope, core, modules, quick edit, quick. Oh, it's straight removed. It's already been spun out. Q. Drupal.org project ideas. 1 second. Let's see. Deprecate forum. Let's do quick edit. Shoot. Well, there we go. That's so there's rewrite quick edit, remove quick edit from core. It's RTBC. This had to have been merged in some way. Unless I don't know. Is there a way to search? Because TUV. Oh, I don't know how to read. Sorry, that's my fault. That's horrible. Quick edit. JavaScript test base. Abstract. Commit. Make abstract. Do not start a new merge request because we have a really weird flow right now. So I need to leave there and click open from here. Now the problem is this should have been caught by something. Is this got it? Does this have a patch? Merge error. Wait. People have. There's a merge request and then there's a patch. 5 months ago, 1 month ago. 52 is from 5 days ago. Let's look here. That's the 9.4.x. To deprecate it, where's the 10.x branch? That's a big patch. It's about to open in my browser. Always do full scan. I'm going to open an issue here. This page is going to crash Brave. I found another reason why we need to run a full on all changes. I discovered this fix for a test base that is not abstract. Exit the page. Let's reload it. Again, it crashed because I was trying to view a 500 megabyte or half a megabyte text file on the same page. 10. Why did the patch fail to apply? Let's open it in a new tab. And removing the class would cause the baseline to be out of date and phpstan error. Removing a baseline rule. A full scan on changes. Test does not apply, but let's look here if the baseline, it was not modified. So let's track that there. Need to review. Actually, I need to open. this may be irrelevant since phpstan only runs on 10.0.x and quick edit is slated to be moved, but raising it anyways. So we'll let other people decide if they're going to take it or not. We got the failing test here, but for the last one, which is weird that it's not occurring in this class, but also this baseline could be out of date. That's one thing too. Drupal's not running against this baseline like it should be. There's reasons for that, because the phpstan scan takes about 2 minutes and Drupal pays for its hosting infrastructure, and we don't have a way to copy caches around. We will once we move to GitLab CI instead of our own Jenkins build that we have. So there's reasons that we have to dance around. So we will work on it, but this case, installer config, installation config test base. But why didn't this other test fail? For some reason, it did not. That's interesting. But what we'll do is still follow. We at least were able to get a failing test. So my idea is to union, so class type, assert type. So we'll do the space type equals new object type. I want to update this to be around super instead of we could do class type is sub. There's only is super of. Get subtracted type. Change subtracted type. No. So browser test base type. We want to say if browser best type is super of class type. So if it's not yes, we bail out. And what we can do here is excluded test types equals, I gotta think of it here. So there's a way to do like a union type. Union type, let's do, how do I do this? New union type. Type combiner, there's like a type combinator. Maybe that's it. Type combinator contains null union types. That's what we want to do. So it's type combinator union. Let me just make sure I'm doing this right. Okay. I am. So what we'll do is we'll pass in new object type of update test base and also of installer config test base. So what is this? This would be then installer config test base. And we can say if is super of class type. So if any of those are a super of that class type, they should be excluded. So let's go ahead and run it. And now the test should pass. or everything's going to be broken. It's going to be one of the two. Like here, it broke this, which is not what I thought would happen. So I'm going to do a debug. Oh, shoot. I know why. I forgot it. So is super of returns trinary logic. So it's yes, no, or maybe. And I forgot to explicitly check yes. So I got back a value object, but I didn't explicitly check that it was yes. And now that passed. So let's go back and run the entire test case since I did it wrong. All right, so that passed. Let's do phpstan or php vendor bin, php cs source. I don't know if I run this against test. If it's got errors, then I don't. Oh no, I do not. Let's do phpstan and just make sure. No errors. Get status. Get commit AV. Exclude. Exclude installer config test base from default theme rule. Push. I made a branch for this, right? Or have I been working on a random? I was working on a random ticket. So I'm going to copy this hash and let's go back to get checkout main, get new branch, GitHub 311. So what I can do is get cherry pick that commit, push u origin, GitHub 311, GitHub PR create, let's create the pull request, fixes number 311, right? And submit. All right, we'll go. So that still failed. Let's just see why it failed. PHP unit. Lots of tests. Where's the failure? Why did it crash? Error. So it still errored. Maybe phpstan didn't release it yet. So this will fix our default theme issues at least. Let's see. Oh, update loader test base. Let's look at this again. This is only in the 10. Let's go look at it. 10, let's see, core, modules, updater, update. Test, source, functional, updater test base. And that again is, let's do Drupal old. Let's create an issue. Wait, that passed, so let's just do a merge. And I'm going to search for this test class. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, it can be moved. The quick edit issue queue once I subtree split course quick edit. Right. Create new test. And time to copy paste the same details here. Must be declared abstract. We can put this on the 10.x branch. So bug report 10.x update.module phpstan 0. Let's copy the error message. Subs to reproduce. We can actually say scan. Errors about default theme, but abstract classes are ignored for this error. Make abstract no error. Make it abstract. Let's copy some of the stuff I put into here. Okay. Update uploader test base. Save. Create the issue fork and provide another update. All right. So let's look at the issues that are remaining. Function twig escape filter not found. That will be an interesting one to look at. So let's find this out. So twig escape filter inside of twig extension, which to me seems like there is some kind of functions not being detected or auto-loaded that normally is when Drupal's analyzed. So let's create a, shoot. I don't know. I think I have a general test for scanning. Drupal auto-loading test, sure do. Dummy rule. And this is in lib Drupal core template. So click extension. Let's run this test and see if it errors. Before I forget, git checkout main. Get back onto main. Let's edit. And web IDE. Modules, no, core. So core, modules, update, no, not tracker. Update, tests, source, let's see, functional, what is it? Update, uploader, test base. Nope. I almost close out this tab instead of update, uploader, test base, right? That is what I had found. That's right, it's not in D9, so let's call it abstract. And let's edit this baseline too, since it's not, that's not the right one. Update, uploader, test base. So that what happens is if this file is modified, then phpstan runs. So I'm going to modify it to prove that it runs and fixes. Make update uploader test base abstract commit. The reason I uncheck start new merge request is right now on Drupal.org, we have this button which sets it up properly. Let's do needs review. Save. All right. So let's see. So needs review. This is queuing. So I want to review this merge request. Changes, abstract, removes that. Great. Let's move on to the Twig extension. I ran the test and reflection error. Test site interface not found. Well, that's not what I was expecting. Let's rerun it. Sometimes there's like weird caching issues about detecting Drupal, and that causes the problem when I run it locally only. So I'm going to rerun and see. Well, then what is going on here? Twig escape filter. In this case, it's finding it. So I cannot reproduce this error locally. That is in the Drupal baseline. Howdy, howdy. Thanks for joining in. When added to the Drupal autoloading test, analyzing that file does not cause an error. Let's comment that. Let's go to issues. Oh, this will be a fun one. So we have this render callback rule. Let's first undo that. Let's pull main. These things are updated. So if I were to go to this render callback rule, what we do is we check where pre-render these items are called and verify that they have callables passed to them and appropriate callable items. The problem is that the placeholder generator, it sets them as true because it uses array intersect key. So it's finding a way to not error when a value has this, but it's maybe being passed in array intersect key or something like that. Or I could just ignore this class, but that's a really big one-off. So that's what I'm trying to work on next. So rules, we have render callback rule, which is called pre-render callback because it was just pre-render. That needs to be fixed. So let's go ahead. Where is this? Core render placeholder, core render. Yeah, the rules for those callbacks is super wild, especially because pre-render is an array, pre and post are an array of callables, access callback is a single callable with no arguments, and lazy builder is a callable and arguments that get passed to it. And I made a first version of this rule that was too simplistic and ruined everything. Luckily that's fixed now, or at least mostly fixed. But then there was this wonderful exception to the rule. And it also makes me somewhat worried because, well, I'm not too worried because in Drupal, let's rerun it. In Drupal, anything with the pound symbol in front of it is intended to be used as part of a render array. So I'm not too worried about hijacking anybody's existing code for this because it's going to be very unlikely that you have it there and it's not intended to be used as part of a render array. So fingers crossed. I was too optimistic and excited to like provide analysis of render arrays to realize any consequences they might have. All right, so this, see right here, Lazy Builder expects a callable array with arguments, and that is not the case here. So we're going to do some debug and see if we can find out how the array is being used. It's just going to be super duper. So let's look at the scope. So namespace, resolve types, context, we're in that file. So like we could check if we're in the placeholder generator, knowing that we could be placeholdering. Actually, I think that makes sense. So let's, what's the function? Where does function get defined from? Oh, the scope. Why don't we try that? So we could do this here. We could say placeholder generator type equals new object type placeholder generator interface. And we could say if scope is in class and scope get class reflection, get type aliases. If scope is in class and placeholder generator type is super of new object type scope get name. But that's a little dirty. So let's see. I'm gonna try something out. Vendor phpstan. Don't all use the trusted callback rules. Yeah, everything is trusted callback, and that verifies it in here. So first, if it's a string, it checks if it's callable. If it's not callable, we error. If it's a function, we say that it's not trusted. See the change record. If it is an array type, we check if it's callable and return it. And at the very end, if it's a super type, trusted callback type is these two interfaces. And if the class from the callable does not implement these two trusted interfaces, we error. If it's a closure, we allow it. But if it's inside of a form, we throw an error because you cannot have a closure in a form. Otherwise, things will explode due to serialization. And if the callable is this, it checks if it's a super of. Actually, it doesn't. Oh no. I think this might be a bug. Shoot. Yeah. There's a lot going on in here, which is why I want to split it up into more classes. But it was definitely it was fun, but it quickly became more complicated than I ever imagined. Source, let's do is in class. Mutating scope, no. Why does it all have to be this different logic from do trusted callback? Yeah, I don't know. Class reflection, class constant rule. Resolve type by name. So if scope in class type equals scope, get class reflection. But it shouldn't be, oh wait, where is this null? It's coming from the EA, but phpstan will complain because it knows we're in a class. So if scope is in class, so we're inside a class and placeholder type is super of new object type, scope, get class reflection, get name. That feels so bad. I do not like that at all. So we'll break it up. So we'll say, so if we're in a class, we want to see if the class is a child of this interface and skip it. But even then, that feels like fragile. But I guess why else would somebody be setting this to true if you're not processing placeholders? And lazy builders are meant to be used by a placeholder. Yeah. So node, yep, there. So scope, namespace. Function get declaring class, variable types. I guess we'll just have to do it that way. And do scope, get class reflection, class name. Just want to try to borrow as much from phpstan as I can. So this is just class name, node scope resolver, class properties node, class type. Yeah, that's about the easiest, that's about the only way to do it. So we can say if placeholder type is super of class type, yes, return an empty array. Allow this to pass since the placeholder generator does processing of the lazy builder callbacks. Right? Turns a render array into a placeholder. And for anybody who's watching this is wondering like what, why, or any of this. So this is how Drupal's big pipe works. Is if something has a lazy builder or create placeholder set, it will defer rendering to the last bit of the tail. It like just converts it to a placeholder and pushes it to the bottom, because then when you have big pipe enabled, it flushes out the first part, and then after it sends out the first content, it uses HTTP streaming to render each placeholder and basically inject it in the page, not via it's not done via Ajax. Like this is something that HTTP just purely supports. It's actually pretty cool. I leveraged this for a dashboard. So instead of Ajaxing in everything, it just used lazy builders for like these 7 blocks. And you could see them appear on the page once the backend processing finished. With no Ajax required, which was super cool. And I remember at DrupalCon Dublin listening to Fabian talk about this, and I had no idea it was just something that was supported by HTTP for like years. And it was really cool to see it first implemented in Drupal with Big Pipe. All right, so let's go ahead. So yeah, that's what it does. It basically creates this like placeholder markup, and then eventually it will get swapped in. Let's debug this once more to see if it passes. Scope. and then there should be no error. Let's see. What I should do is some due diligence and all right, placeholder generator renderer. That's the other instance and this test. So again, it should only be used if they're calling array intersect key. So this is still not great. So this isn't perfect because we could say like if it's in the placeholder generator or inside of the renderer. So we could say loud types equals type combinator union interface, right? That's a class. So since the placeholder generator and renderer does processing of lazy ability callbacks, you know, or actually we can just say pass. So we could do this, but then that test would fail, and we could put code into that test that says, hey, ignore next line. But I think it would be better if we could actually detect and we detect array intersect key. So let's debug this some more. You probably have said this before, but there's a reason you don't use class. I don't know, honestly. I didn't before due to just weird auto loading problems. That's a good question. I was having issues before, so I'm gonna start fixing that. Going forward. I don't remember why. I was having weird problems with the auto loading, and I think that was why, because not every class is well, I guess at this point is bootstrap. Drupal doesn't have all of its lib core or component things auto loaded. Some things are still dynamic for whatever reason. So that was why I was doing that, especially like the test suite and various things. It's just, but I guess it would be. It's actually there's no difference, right? It doesn't matter if it can be auto loaded. This gets translated to the fully qualified name. Yeah, it's compile time, string constant. Yeah, I don't know why. I just didn't. That's all there is to it. And I should. It's just I didn't, and then I just kept following my own bad pattern, basically. All right, so scope. Let's see. Actually, so we've got the node, which is an array item. I almost fell off my stool. Attributes, parent, attributes, parent, parent function call, name, parts, array, intersect key. All right. We should be able to bubble up the parents. Get parent scope. Oh boy. Parent equals. Let's try that. Let's see what happens in the parent scope. Could be null. And it sure is. So scope. Let's see. So not parent scope. Let's try scope function, get function name, get function type is an anonymous function. This would be neat if there was a is in function. So let's see. Nope, that's not it. Resolve type. Arg node get attribute parent. Let's see. Well, if it's an array intersect key, we know a few things, right? So let's do parent equals node get attribute. So we should know a few things. If it's check if being used in array intersect key. We should be able to determine a few things. We know that the parent will be an array, and that array should be in a function, an argument. All right, so let's do a if parent instance of well, we know it's always going to be an array. So parent array. So let's do parent array parent, because why not? Oh, that's not going to be there. So let's do parent equals if parent instance of array. Let's do parent equals parent get attribute parent. All right. Oh, but man, this doesn't work either. Well, it does, but what if somebody defined the array before the function itself, so it wasn't passed into the function call? You can only do so much. You know what? You can only do so much. Never mind. We can only detect what we can. So parent is arg. So we'll say if parent instance of arg. Say note, this only works against existing patterns in core in Drupal core, where the array with Boolean values is being passed as the argument to array intersect key. I think that's good enough. So if parent is equal to arg, let's do attributes, and the parent of that should be func call equals parent get attribute parent type equals scope get type func call. So if this is just absurd. There's got to be a better way to do this. No. This just feels silly. My phone's being silly. Like, I don't want to go all the way up till there's no parent, but I guess I've gotta so type array type. Wait. Parent. is phone call. Scope get type, array type. No, what? Parent name, parts. Okay, I'll just do that. I'm really curious. Name equals name equals type. Yeah. So we know it's phone call and parent name to lower string equal to array intersect key. Return an empty array. And then maybe I'll try to be fancier about it. All right, let's debug it. And this would fix 3 baseline errors in Drupal core. All right, there we go. All right. I guess this is the best I could do. Like, I don't know. I don't want to do like a while loop and go up the parents, because what if there's like a stupid amount of parents and we just keep looking up? We know it's about 3 levels deep, and I don't know if phpstan has anything for this. So that's my next step, is to see if there's anything in the phpstan codebase that can be used as leverage. Analyzer, mutating scope. This is just in the resolve type where it checks if the parent, if it's an argument. Function call. So yeah, if it's an arg, and again, this is the resolve type. Parent node, reflection, arg parent. Select from args. Rules, exceptions, parent. This, I guess, that's one thing. Where'd it go? So this does a try find catch recursively. And if it's null, it just keeps going up the parents. I guess this is fine. I like the explicitness of it, so just leave it. All right. So I'm on main. This should be branch, GitHub new branch, GitHub 303, diff, combinator, and actually should be done too is this pre-render callback rule. We should also test the renderer, because this also has array intersect key with these items. So let's do PHP, run phpstan. Right, line 78. Of course, something's going to go wrong. Called undefined name. Why? Name. You gotta be. All right, phpstan, what do you do to make yourself not error on this? If node name is not null, mutated scope. If node is because it could be an anonymous function. And parent name is not equal to null. That's why, because what? Oh, sorry. 91. Well, we can ditch this because that's the old way. Called the undefined method get string. We got parent. If parent name is not equal to null, parent not equal to null. If statement name is equal to null, just don't want to expand this out even more. Just name, function name. Is this going to make it happy? Let's test the rule again. All right. I guess that will have to do it. Just call like, yeah. Abstract call like, function call. I guess that's the best way to handle it. Let's phpcs it. Of course, 77. Maybe allow non-callable and lazy builder if array intersect key origin get out 3. It still feels messy, but it fixes the core use cases. Fixes 303. Yeah. Again, it's not perfect, but it works. Because yeah, that's right here. Yeah, these two. So it would fix those two baseline errors and a test. So I'm okay with that. So I can't reproduce that. Pull request here, enabling rules 1x1 docs are wrong. I have to fix some docs. I would like to extend the cache backend interface get because it always returns an object that has a data attribute on it. That would improve some static analysis. But I don't know if I got through reading this baseline. So I'm going to go to the bottom and work myself back up. So here we go. And I want to watch that pull request. So render test. And some of these I feel like the tests are testing things. So access callback function. This might be an no. Yeah, that might be an error. So actually, yeah, this is a whole. This is weird. Not weird, but basically it can't determine what the callable is. Oh yeah. All right, I could try this one out for size. Clean not trusted. Oh, access array callback. This render test callback does not implement. So yeah, a lot of these tests it needs to skip it because the tests aren't intended to run that way. But this one is a doozy. Not literal string, non-empty string. Let's see. We try to break it apart and do process node. No, not here. And get type. So type. So if it's a constant string. So what this does is if we're given a string, it tries to figure out the value or to split it up into a constant string array type, like we do here and here. Else, if key checked is access callback, where'd it go? So if access callback do process node, constant string type, constant array type, closure type, this type, intersection type, which is not there. So, all right. Else. Let's do a breakpoint here and here. I'm going to run against that test and see what we can figure out. Pre-render. Where is this? Core test. And core test Drupal tests. Test Drupal test for render. And that's renderer test. Let's run it so I can get that new data set. Let's look back here. This passed. Just merge it. Delete. All right, so 8 should fail. Believe. All right. Yeah. Literal string and non-empty string. Okay. So it's an intersection type. Okay. So the breakpoint does go here at this intersection type, where it's concat generic. So it should be in here, this binary operation. So let's do debug. And see where we get. All right, so generic class string, constant string type. Because we had issues like this where if it was static class, it wasn't able to be figured out. So left string type is constant string type with the 2 colons, and the right string type is a union type of access false, result not allowed, result forbidden, access true. So it's one of those. Constant string type. Node binary op concat. Can we get type? No. Let's try something here. Else type equals scope get type from node. And then we'll do stop equals null right here. And let's refresh it and we'll see what happens. I don't know if you can hear, but apparently my kids are now home and fighting in the background, so sorry about that. All right, hopefully I can get this done before they get too rowdy. All right, come on, type. Let's see what happens in this type. Intersection type. Oh, wait, we're already here. We already have the type. What am I doing? And then this just gives us the type, string type. Type, get types. That's not going to help us. All right, let's try to think here. So the left type is constant string type. You know what would be so much better is if this test used array callable. Like if it did this, right? I bet all the problems in the world would be over if we did this instead. And I debugged it. Oh. So if we do the debug here and we actually use a callable this way, let's see. Because we should get, I wonder if we're going to get stuck here actually. Because we're going to have a string, so generic class, it shouldn't be a generic string. Oh, 1 second. All right, that's taken care of. So access, so we get a union here, but nothing. We didn't get intersection type either. So let's debug this. Didn't catch what I thought it would catch. Oh, because it's not a binary op anymore. Sorry. Shoot. This is a whole different area that could be used. So we're not going to fix core. but it could be in here somewhere. So let's do, well, first off, it does implement trusted callback interface. All right, great. Let's do a debug because somebody might have this where we have the different methods and we need to test them all out. Yeah, and the cat, my cat's in here now. He broke in. Because a constant stream of chaos is the tiny bit of chaos is the key to living life. They have constant array type and method name, method pre-render printed. That's not what we want. Type or key checked. Actually, we want this to be on trusted callbacks. Where are we looking here? Test access class. So debug, we want key checked equal access callback. And let's see if we can step through this, because I feel like it's definitely gonna be something that plenty of people do when they have dynamic methods instead of defining the callable. We do weird things in Drupal. That's all there is to say. We define callbacks in weird dynamic ways. Which is okay because leveraging phpstan will probably and hopefully fix that so we have a more normalized way of defining our callbacks. I can't get this to, if key checked is, oh, I forgot the hash symbol. Pound, hash, pound, hash, yeah, blah. Pound symbol. And hopefully come on. So it won't be a constant string type. We're going to end up here in constant array type. All right, type, closure type. No. Union type. Here we go. Wait, trusted callback type is union type? No. Step over. So our type is closure type. Next one. Type is constant array type. Okay. So if is callable. Yes. So constant array type. Why not? Value types is a union type. So it's not callable. You know what I bet happens? Let's try this out. So if type is callable, maybe. We know we can stop here. So let's ditch that and we'll dive in. So I wonder if we get to maybe. Constant array type, find type and method name. So if is super of method, maybe. Where do we get? Let's step through. So this type of method name. So method is, that's not it. Oh. All right, let's step through and make sure I'm actually at the right one. Somewhere in here, method. If not method of constant string type, oh, it might say it's unknown. So let's go to the debugger, access callback. type, constant array type, value types. We have a union type. All right. So let's step through. And that's where we get unknown, which gives us the maybe. And puts us here. All right. So mood starting with level 9. Yeah. So I actually have like, so at Acquia right now I'm working on a project and I have the code passing with level 9 on phpstan and, well, wait. I think it's level 9, but I turned off the iterable requirements because entities implement something and it wants entities to have their array type defined. So I just noped out of that. I was like, I can't handle all these squiggly lines in my IDE. So it is possible to write Drupal code that passes level 9. It's just is enough data coming through so it's not just like mixed, because if anything is mixed, it just passes. So it's trying to resolve instances where we get back mixed items. All right, so if the callable is maybe, let's try this out. Yeah, the PHPCS and array caret bracket things is very annoying. This is going to look really gross in here, but let's just type method and name, get method. No, not method. Hold on. That's not going to be right. So if method instance of return constant array type and method, create unknown, type method is null. Okay, so it gets to that point. So type get method name. So if it's maybe callable, it's not going to come back with a find type. It's not going to come back with anything useful in here. So find value type. So type, you want to do type get value types. Value types. No, oh wait, I got this right here. So value types, constant array. Value types accepts is super type of equals get value offset type, unset offset remove first, generalize values, get array keys, reverse, merge with, get all arrays, accepts is super of. I want to see if we can get the value types like 0. Like we know. Oh, wait a second. Duh. That's where find type method name. What am I doing here? So what we need to do is if methods instance of union type but that could be or not. Maybe this won't be the end of the world because we're not inspecting. We actually don't inspect what values are returned from the trusted callback value. So let's see here. Constant type array. Trusted callback type. By method type and name. Get type. So maybe I could actually simplify this a bit. Let's try this. So if class or object type is instance of constant string type and class or object is class name is class string, which it is in this case. So we have is class and trusted callback type is super of class or object. Holy cow. Return. That feels like a lot. So maybe, so what we do is we'll handle that if it's a maybe. So how about this? So we can do if no. So if it's a no, we return early. If it's maybe, we handle here. And then if it's yes, we get the type and name. Which we could actually now simplify. That we go to class or object is class string, should be constant type, find type, get type, find method name and type, constant array method name and type. But it could be any kind of, so class or object. So if it's constant string type, generic string type, object without class type, an anonymous object. So what we could do, let's see. We don't need this to be string type actually. So class or object. So if it's not callable, we don't care about the actual methods necessarily. We just call about the implementing class. So let's do if. So I think we could handle this here. So if it's explicitly not callable, return the error. And we'll do class or object type describe. I think this cleans this up. So now we can handle maybe and yes at the same time. And if the caller on the left is not a super of, so now it handles anonymous classes, whatever else. Let's debug this and see what happens. So what I should do is copy over the, oh, I broke everything. Pre-render cat class does not implement wait, that makes no sense. Does not implement callback interface key 2 static class. Yes, it does. All right, so I broke this logic somewhere. So let's just debug it. Man. Class or object. Trusted callback type. Oh, trusted callback type is a union type of render callback. Trusted callback interface is class string. Why? Oh, I know why. We gotta do find type and method name. So in find type and method name, it returns constant string type. Type is new object type. That's it. Shoot. So we'll have to replicate a bunch of this logic in here. So let's do that. So pre-render callback rule. So we can say if class or object instance of constant string type, if it has class, it returns unknown. This get class, get name. This feels too hacky. Because if we call get maybe, it returns null. Or if we do dang it. Let's see. Find type and method name. Get type, get certainty, get method, and unknown. The unknown, I don't know where it went. Create unknown. Why does it set the type to null? Because it's not unknown. The type is known. If type is null, so should not happen. Method should not happen. I'm going to skip this and tag the release for the day, because this is just getting into the weeds for something that even in Drupal core I can't verify it, so I'm just going to skip it out. And we had a few good fixes that came in today, so that's the main part. So let's go tag a new release for 1.1.10. 5 commits to main. Let's see what they are. So releases. Oh, I don't need to see because it will tell me. 10. So return type for config entity queries, exclude installer, blah, 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 and non-callable to lazy builder fixes. So let's create a discussion. I'm going to publish this. And there we go. Thanks for tuning in. This provides this should help shrink down the baseline for PHP Stan in Drupal 10 by about this is like 5 or 6, maybe 7 items. So it's not huge, but it's a big step. I know one thing that I need to look at is this get definitions on categorizing manager trait. This is actually a big one that I need to look into to see what's going on. But that's for next week. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you later. Bye.